Hello, and welcome back to Portugal and to a very, very hot summer's day, which is why I'm hanging out under this tree to try and get out of the sun and to cool off, because we are flat out on, I think, 4 separate projects at the moment. And unfortunately, none of them are finished, or at least none of them are at a good point to conclude a nice little story about something that we're doing. But we've always got backup plans, and sometimes we even have backup plans for backup plans. And so we do actually have something that we can show you this week. And it relates to one of the projects on the critical path for our heat pump installation, which I think is happening next week now. So we are halfway through installing electricity in the house, running water in the house, and a new floor in one room of the house. And today's video is relating to that floor. We've got some really beautiful natural stone, some limestone, that comes from not too far from here, about an hour and a half's drive-ish. And so when we went there to take a look and see what they had, we looked around this place and we thought, this is really cool. We think this is really cool. Maybe other people will think this is really cool. Maybe we should make a video about it. So we asked the guys at the company there, called Limestone, we said, do you mind if we come back and do some filming and show people the kind of stuff that you do? And they were like, yeah, all right. And so this is not a sponsored video. We went, we saw something that we liked, we paid full price for it. But it turns out there's lots of things that we didn't know about natural stone. And so we're going to try and show you some of those things that we learned along the way, and show you everything from right in the quarry where the stone came from, through some of the manufacturing process, and then the finishing process as well, ready for it to be delivered here on site. So this video is going to be a bit different to the kind of thing that we normally do. So if you like it, let us know. And we might do more stuff like this. And if you don't like it, that's okay too. So let's go on a small adventure. Hi.
Morning.
Good morning.
Way too early. I think it's been many years since we've had to get up this early.
But are you excited about seeing your stones?
I am, which is kind of a bit weird. But yes, excited. It also means that we're one step closer to having a floor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a finished floor.
So yes, it's very early in the morning. I think it's just gone 8 o'clock, and we have been driving for an hour and a half to come to this wonderful place. We are very privileged to be able to come and see our floor before it is a floor, and we're actually going to go to the factory where it's going to be finished. There is all sorts of very fancy processes that happen to this stone so that it has exactly the right kind of finish that we have selected, and we're going to try and show you as much of that process as possible, and I'm also very excited.
So let's start at the beginning and show you where the stone tiles for our floor came from. This is a limestone quarry owned by Limeport, near the town of Alcobaça in the Leiria district of central Portugal. You might have heard of Portuguese limestone, or you might have heard us talking about all the many and varied ways we're using lime in our farmhouse renovation. Well, Portugal is quite well known for producing limestone, and there is literally tons of it where we live in the central part of the country. Now, I don't think it comes across so well on the camera, but it was simply breathtaking standing on the edge of this huge hole in the earth, seeing all the blocks of stone below. And it was even more impressive to see the huge machines that were moving them all around. These stones being quarried here were formed over millions of years, and it's quite incredible to think that something so raw can eventually be turned into something so beautiful. And we're fortunate to be able to show you a small part of that process today.
It's amazing that our floor started off looking like something like this, and it came out of there.
The blocks are taken from the quarry to the nearby factory and sliced up into slabs on a massive bandsaw, a process that takes quite some time. And throughout the factory, we saw some pretty mind-blowing machinery in action here. It's not every day you see several tons of stone being effortlessly lifted across a warehouse with a remote control crane. Very cool indeed. From here, our stones were taken to a different factory for cutting into tiles and for the finishing, which we'll show you a bit later. We were very fortunate to have the opportunity to take a tour of that factory and look at the many different colours and textures of limestone, marble, and other types of stone that I can't remember the name of. One of the things that was really amazing to see was all the different types of finishing on those different stones, which in some cases made them look completely different. There was everything from subtle textures to deep grooves. We saw honed stone, blasted stone, flamed stone, and brushed stone, just to name a few. And each type of finish had its own specialist machine to do the work. There were some very high-tech pieces of kit in the factory, many of them automated like giant robots, and quite mesmerizing to watch. In fact, I was really surprised that we were so happy to spend literally hours walking around this place looking at all the stone and the robots and the people doing the work. Because of course there was a bit of human intervention required from time to time, and to set up the machine so that everything ran smoothly. One thing that was hard to miss, although we've tried to dial down in the video, is that the factory was so noisy. And that was partly because of all the machines, but also from all the water that was used to cool them. Cutting stone produces a huge amount of heat, so many of the machines are water cooled. With so many machines running pretty much all day and sometimes into the night, thousands of litres of water are used, but it's not wasted. Throughout the facility, there are drains and gullies and channels that take the water off to a central location to be collected and filtered so it can be used again for the next round of cutting and brushing and honing and all those things. After having a bit of a wander around and a short coffee break, it was then time to see our stones go through their finishing process. On our first trip to Limeport, we'd looked at a whole load of different sample stones, different types of stone and different finishes. And the type of stone that we'd chosen was called Braemar Ven. It's a light cream stone with some brown and beige streaks, and we opted for a brushed finish. This was the type of stone and finish that we liked the most, and the good news was it was also one of the cheapest options, at just €33 plus tax per square metre. Like many of the other things we'd seen that day, the brushing process involved a big machine. The stones were fed in one end onto a conveyor belt moving very slowly through the machine, and then inside there was a series of heavy-duty wire brushes that moved backwards and forwards in a kind of oscillating motion across the face of the stones as they travel along the conveyor. The result of this is a very subtle textured finish that really brings out the natural grain and colours in the stone, and it should give a nice touch of rustic elegance to our farmhouse floor. Well, that's the hope anyway. As you can imagine, seeing all this stuff and seeing our stone tiles come off the conveyor belt for the very first time was quite exciting, and I honestly can't wait to see how the finished floor is going to look. After seeing all our stone be processed, and after a very tasty lunch at a local restaurant, we returned back to Limeport for one last look around their showroom and warehouse, so we could see some of the other products that they produce. One of the things that really drew us to this company when we first visited was their commitment to reducing waste. There's a huge amount of energy that goes into extracting, processing and finishing stone, but also a huge amount of waste from imperfections in the stone itself and from the cutting. A very cool project that Limeport are working on is a range of products that are made from stones that would otherwise go to waste. Stones that are too imperfect or full of holes or have some other kind of issues with them. They're experimenting with all sorts of ways to take this raw material and the machines they already have to produce a range of experimental products, things like planters, recliners, sculptures and all sorts of other things, essentially made with stones full of holes. We think they look really interesting, we love the idea, and we're planning to add a couple of these pieces to our exterior landscaping in years to come.
So there we go, that was our trip to Limeport, and hopefully you found that as interesting as we did. We had an amazing day. We spent, I don't know how many hours there, but many hours walking around the factory, walking around the Limeport warehouse. They even took us out to lunch as well, which was very nice indeed. Thank you very much if you're watching. Now I can say with some confidence that next week we will actually be able to show you the installing of these beautiful tiles, because I'm standing just outside the room that we have just finished the tiling in. So I hope you can join us next week for that. But thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye for now. My love, can you shout bye?